Legendäres Video, Teil 2. Teil 1 haben wir schon mal geguckt, Teil 2 haben wir noch nicht geguckt.
When a watch movement turns this crunchy, the teeth on these gears are brand new.
Sehr krasser Watch Collector, werden wir jetzt sehen, Leute, macht euch bereit. Guck mal. LA.
5 years later.
Alles Factory.
From the original Talking Watches.
How many talking watches have you done so far?
We have done 45 episodes of Talking Watches, and you were the first.
Wow.
And little did we know that it would become what it is today. I mean, now it's really our flagship property, I would say. Right. And we shot that video in a cafe in New York City on a day that you were in town, I think to do Letterman or something like that.
That's right.
Really no thought given to it, and now here we are.
Yeah, and since then it's
Guck mal, wie jung die beiden auch waren, ne?
More understood the sort of notion of showing your watches off.
Yeah.
Being more of a historical-based, sort of passion-based thing and not like, hey, look what I got.
Das muss man sagen, ist hier noch nicht so ganz, was er gerade bespricht, dass die Leute halt ihre Kollektion zeigen kann, ohne dass halt jetzt so als Flex rüberkommt, dass da sträuben sich die Deutschen.
So we have a lot of Daytonas here. Why don't we start with this guy here?
This is a 6265. So fairly later on into the lifespan of the Daytona.
Seht ihr das da unten? Ey. Kanja, König von Oman, Print vorne. Damals war, also gerade jetzt diese Art von Uhr mit, also die Daytona, gibt es eine berühmte Geschichte, dass ein Pilot halt damit beschenkt worden ist. Ne? Solche Uhren waren damals halt nicht so teuer. Und der König von Oman hat damals es einfach verschenkt. Ne?
There is a burning, passionate love for Arab-branded dial. Indeed. Rolex, especially Daytona. It's a little pot leafy, is it not?
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
We're talking about
sehr spezieller
red,
Grünton,
silver,
ne?
and
Sieht
black.
Abgefahren aus.
And then the striking contrast of green. I think that's what really draws me. This is another 6265. And how much do you think of your brand to go, hey, get that Rolex brand off there? Never happened today. So it represents somebody doing a custom order with Rolex.
Yeah.
And we've seen history dictate that that's happened, but it really doesn't happen very often anymore.
It almost never happens anymore.
Guck mal, ihr müsst euch vorstellen, guck mal, Rolex hat hier eine Krone draufgesetzt, kein Namen von dem, also Markennamen plus kein Modell. Sie haben einfach gesagt, nee, wenn ihr das wollt, machen wir das. Das durchzukriegen ist krass, solche Uhren zu sehen. Diese Uhren werden niemals im Markt so auftauchen, in so einem Vielfalt und so. Das ist etwas ganz, ganz, ganz Besonderes. Wirklich toll zu sehen.
What is this guy?
I'm looking towards nonsense, non-Paul Newman Daytonas.
Paul Newman Daytona in
really,
Gold.
I think, to me, are taking the place of what Paul Newman Daytonas were, but now to wear one outside of the house is kind of crazy.
It is, yeah. 6264.
6264. You could call it a Panda dial, except for the red Daytona. Right? But you could get away with calling it a Panda dial. There's something about the intersection of pump pusher, Panda-esque, Paul Newman, not an oyster, basically a 6241 dial. In one of these really strange transitional reference numbers.
For made for 1 year, like 1972, and that's...
So if you're one of these collectors who likes a bunch of little asterisks next to the thing, well, you could have a 6239, or you could have a 6241, but you start getting into these little...
This is that third tier.
This is that third tier of things. Like, well, no, this is a 6264, also serviced, and super clean, too.
Ja, toller Zustand.
And you have some other vintage Daytonas here that really are kind of the benchmark for collectible Daytonas.
Yeah, they're the... I didn't know it at the time, really, but they have become the cornerstone of a collection. I mean, I can't lie. It's been amazing to watch the numbers go up on them. Remember, I was buying watches and trying to...
Sowas ist heute, sowas gibt es nicht.
Impress upon people around me that I promise I'm not crazy, right?
Sure.
So I would, email a business manager and be like, can you please, I promise you this is important, can you please just, can we get this? And it's like a business manager, for those who don't know, is a dad that you hire to ask for money, right? So for me, when I see that something has gone exponentially higher than what I paid for it, my first thought is, oh, people aren't going to think I was crazy for spending that much money in the first place.
Right. So we're talking about the 6269 and the 6270. These are the original rainbow Daytonas.
These are the original rainbows. Certainly, this is the original baguette pave dial Daytona. There is differing takes on how many there are made of these. I've heard 8.
Right.
What have you heard?
So for the longest time I heard 8, then I heard 10, then I heard 8 again. So nobody has any idea.
Between 8 and 10, and I have to tell you, this must have sat in a safe, because to turn, when a watch movement turns this crunchy.
Wahnsinn, Leute. Das hier ist wirklich es wird nicht besser als das. Rolex, das ist, er hatte gesagt Cornerstone. Das ist das Fundament für die Rainbow, für diese ganze Gemstone-Sache. Das war ist ein sehr wichtiger Teil der Geschichte, ne, von Rolex.
6269 is the princess cut diamond bezel version. I think all would agree. Well, maybe you would say that the 6270 is a his and the 69 is a hers.
Yep.
And that's dreaming about a life I certainly don't have. But man, would that be fun.
Which is a great segue into the
Nein,
actual Rainbow
viel mehr
Daytona
als
that
eine
you wear all the
Million.
time.
Viel mehr.
I don't quite know who the target audience is if you're just looking at the aesthetic. You could imagine, you know, but there is something about them that when people see in person, they all kind of give in and go, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. And when these first came out, everybody thought they
Guck mal, er hat sogar noch die Sticker
The
drauf.
attitude on a Rainbow Daytona when they first came out was yuck. Who would do that?
Ja.
Who would go so far? And something happened that's brilliant, where the joy of collecting superseded the craziness of the design of these watches.
So let's finish off the Rolexes. We've got a few subs actually.
Yes, I'm a big collector of Comex Submariner and Sea Dwellers.
In the last video you showed a 1680 Comex.
Yes,
Yep.
which I still love. Has a great
Du
story.
weißt nicht mehr, wem du sie verkauft hast, Elio.
The
Das ist
original
auch gut.
Comex is what's called a 5514 reference, and that would be the prototype to the Sea Dweller, and that would be a Submariner with a helium gas escape valve. Go back all the way to the very beginning to what, 1953?
Yeah, 53, 54.
So there's your very first Submariner before they called it
Mit
a Submariner.
Explorer
So it doesn't
Dial.
even say Submariner.
Ganz
It doesn't
selten.
even say Submariner. What do you have? You have a no crown guard, big crown,
Explorer dial.
369. This would be the very, very first
Krass.
Rolex
Krass.
dial.
Einfach nur
Yeah.
heftig.
No hash marks on the
Nope.
bezel.
Das war der Ursprung. Da
So a
ging
lot
es
of these
los mit
watches,
der
a lot of vintage
allerersten
Rolexes you've had
Taucheruhr.
for a long time, 10 years plus. And then you transition kind of quickly into Patek Philippe. And so when I think of you and when I first got to know you, Patek Philippe was what you were all about.
Yes.
And I think the first time I met you, you were wearing this watch, which I still think of as one of your watches.
It is one of
Wow.
my favorite pieces.
Schön.
971.
5971.
Tolle
This
Uhr.
is the very end of the Lamania base plate movement era of Patek Philippe. And as we get
Wisst ihr, was Patek da gemacht hat? Für euch sieht das irgendwie wie eine klassische Uhr aus. Aber Patek hat ähnlich wie die Rolex Zenith Daytona, hat einfach einen anderen Hersteller genommen fürs Werk. Kann sich das jemand heute vorstellen?
So similar to the 5971, the 5004 plays a big part in your collection. You've got a bunch of them, you love it.
the power of the 5004 lies in how big the crown is with a pusher in the middle of the crown. It is stunning.
Wow!
When you show some
Siehst du, was das hier ist? Das ist ein Schleppzeigerchrono. Das heißt, man kann hier nochmal eine Zwischenzeit messen. Hier hinter diesem Sekundenzeiger, haltet euch fest, ist noch ein Sekundenzeiger. Und ihr drückt hier drauf und dann macht es BAM! Und dann könnt ihr das weiterlaufen lassen, eine Zwischenzeit nehmen. Sensationell.
the split-second timer function, whether you're into watches or not, they go, wow, that's cool.
It's a neat thing.
4 different metals in 3 or 4 different
Habe ich auch
dials.
schon
5
verkauft.
different metals, if you count the steel.
If you count the steel, 6 if you count the titanium sold at the one watch. You don't want
That's
to try
a
to
deep
go-
cut. That's a deep cut.
You know. But right, it is 5 metals.
Sowas zum Beispiel, ne? Zum Beispiel für euch. Ihr seht sowas und sagt jetzt so, ja, holt mich nicht so ab. Leute, das hier ist das, wofür Patek bekannt war. Das ist Clive Christensen.
That sort of takes us into the watches I've worn the most
Right.
over the last 5 years. AP, about 10 years ago, put out their first concept. And since then, sort of been releasing these watches that are hyper technical. They get their power from being a little different. And the watch I've worn the most, one of the watches I've
Krass,
worn the
ne?
most, is the white ceramic GMT. It's the perfect summer watch. That watch has been in my wrist more times on stage with Dead & Company probably than any other watch.
Cooler Look auch so, ne? Auf der Stage, dann mit der Concept, so ist cooler Look.
And much like this one, which is the latest purchase I've made of AP, which is the self-winding tourbillon, AP right now is on it with these watches. Much in the way that Richard Mille is, but with like 100 years behind it. And for whatever reason, you know, we buy watches to kind of get kicked in the crotch in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Aber das ist schon ein guter Punkt, der sagt, man kauft Uhren und man wird schon überfahren von dem Preis. Ne? Keiner von euch, oder ist ja bei mir genauso, guck mal, wenn ich Uhren kaufe, ne? Guck mal, ich kaufe jetzt Uhren, okay? Ich bestätige Uhren, kaufe Uhren und so und dann, oh, das ist verdammt nochmal, ey, warum habe ich das nur gemacht? Warum habe ich diese Uhr nur gekauft? Ey, bis ich die jetzt wieder verkauft habe, ist so viel Geld. Und so bei euch ist es genauso. Ihr kauft eine Uhr und sagt, ey, verdammt, ich habe so lange dafür gespart, so viel Geld. Jetzt habe ich davon diese Uhr gekauft, ja. Aber dieses Gefühl, das ist ja auch dann das ist halt der Weg, ne? Das ist der Weg.
And you have a manually wound tourbillon as well.
This is one of the most worn watches as well. This is what I think is the boutique exclusive version of the extra thin tourbillon in gold with a matching gold dial. Remember, I love a tourbillon because it is a bunch of technology to be a wall clock.
Einer der schönsten Tourbillon-Uhren.
Nothing more than the hours and the minutes, but the process to that is so Rube Goldberg device.
It really is.
I love it.
All the APs all the time. What else do you wear often?
Well, let's tell the story of the day you and I both met at the Rolex boutique in New York City. Had a couple drinks.
Yeah, we did.
And walked into the Rolex boutique and both bought ourselves the white gold GMT. Of course, everyone knows.
Guck mal, wie die Beat Up die ist. Die hat der richtig gerockt.
I think in some ways it's kind of cooler than a Daytona. Application-wise, a GMT is so exciting. It's world ready. It's like, let's go.
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. 5164A, travel time, Patek Philippe, Aquanaut.
Oh shit, Leute. Oh mein Gott. Seht ihr das hier? Alter, Tiffany und Co. Double signed.
Tiffany signed.
Natürlich.
Natürlich. Sort of Chuck Taylor version of Patek Philippe. And so this is
weiß, was er macht. Er weiß, was er macht.
You wear when you just want to wear a watch. And you don't always want to make a statement. And this has become kind of my go-to piece, you know? It doesn't throw anybody off, but it's still a Patek. It is a GMT. So this is the watch that you wear to symbolize that you got some other pieces at home, but that this is the one you're wearing out.
Sehr, sehr schönes Video und toll, dass ihr alle mit dran geblieben seid. Ist einfach ein cooles Video. Einfach ein cooles Video.